do. You do.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. We're back with Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson, the lady and the coach. We just want to thank y'all for joining us and continue to join us as we come on during the summers. And we just want to thank y'all for just continuing to support the things that we do towards helping marriages in today's times. We would like to thank our bishop and our first lady and allowing us and entrusting us to continue to bring you this part of our ministry to help marriages, not only in our ministries, but in marriages and in other ministries. So we just want to continue to work and do the things that God has shown us to do to support you. You got anything you want to say to the people?
Not yet. I'm just waiting on this post to come up so I can share it. So hopefully everybody will like it, share it with whoever you think might be interested. We got a little bit of a lag here. So hopefully people will, there we go. Will be joining us pretty soon. I'm going to go ahead and share it.
All right.
You go ahead.
Well, we have a few people coming in. Brother Tony Jones, thank you for tuning in tonight, for giving us a half hour of your time. And, you know, we're pretty stickler about the time that we use with people on Mondays because it's normally the first work week for everybody. And we want to respect your time. And we just want to thank y'all for just sharing with us. Brother Charles Brown, and I can see where my wife is sharing with people and said that she's watching and she's here. So we just want to thank y'all for coming in and being a part of what we're trying to do.
Did it say I shared it?
It doesn't say you shared it. Nope. It just says Trina is watching.
Yeah, I didn't type it. That just came up.
All right. So we normally get started a few minutes after 7 to give people time to come in and start putting their so we can see them and greet folk as they come in. All right, we've been away for a little while. You know, last week we didn't come Memorial Day. We were actually traveling and spending time with my wife's side of the family and just enjoying that time. Also, we just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary. Had a really, really nice time in Atlanta at a very nice restaurant and spent the night up there. So that was a really, really good situation for us, and we really enjoyed ourselves. Hopefully, the next part of our celebration, which will come in going to California, is we're going to celebrate the second half of our marriage anniversary this month. And we just want to share those things with y'all and, you know, just let y'all know what the lady and the coach are doing to keep our marriage going and as successful as it could possibly be. So with that said, you want to get ready to just introduce tonight's lesson. You see some more folk coming in?
Mm-hmm. Mama is here. She made her presence known. Oh my gosh. I can't see as well with my contacts with my glasses. Natasha Jenkins, and I'm sure her husband too, are here. So we have people watching, joining in. And I will say I just read, when I turned on Facebook to get ready for this, I saw where someone said that they would celebrate their anniversary on the day of each month is what they're doing leading up to their anniversary for this year. So I thought that was a real creative way to keep your marriage at the forefront, and to celebrate, keep your, just to celebrate every month, to take the time to celebrate every month as if it's your anniversary. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a neat idea. For the person that posted that, we appreciate that.
That's good
so
stuff.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it is. It really is important to make your marriage a priority and keep it at the forefront. We have Sheena that has joined us, Sheena and Johnny, and Francine Brown has joined her husband Charles Brown watching. So people are starting to come on in. We're going to talk about this topic that we have to discuss today. Was one that was requested, and we actually have a couple of topics that have been requested, which we always appreciate that, even just to send a text or in conversation, or if you don't want to do it across publicly, across Facebook or whatever, you can always text me or message me, or my husband, and let us know what topics are of interest to you. Or even if you can't think of a specific topic, if there's a issue you're having or you're concerned about or just want more information about, shoot it out there, and we'll see if it's something that that we can turn into a conversation to help enhance everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what tonight's topic is. We're talking about the parent-child relationship, or the parent-child dynamic in marriage. And it's something you may or may not be familiar with. For some, maybe the first time you've ever heard of it. Other people may be more familiar with it. It's a very common issue in marriage, whether young or if you have a young marriage or a well-seasoned marriage. Sometimes we find it even more in the older marriages. It becomes an issue, and people don't always recognize it as a problem.
Right.
But it really is. So we're going to talk about that today. Our goal is to increase your awareness of the parent-child dynamic in marriage, and to have you become aware of what that looks like in a marriage, and how to avoid it, or how to move away from that type of dynamic in your marriage relationship.
Hello, Miss Jennifer Bush. Here.
Hey, Jen.
How are you?
Thank you for joining us.
Well, the definition for the parent-child dynamic in marriage is: it occurs when one person in a marriage relationship takes on the role of the parent and the other one takes on the role of a child. Let me say that again. One of the people in the marriage, the husband or the wife, take on the role as a parent, and the other person take on the role as a child, of the child. And this is can really be a problem in your marriage. Now, what are some of the roles we're talking about? What does the parent role look like? What does the parent role look like?
Oh, you mean within marriage or in general?
In the parent-child dynamic.
Okay, when that dynamic exists in a marriage, the parent usually is the person who's a natural nurturer. So it's not gender specific. So let's be clear about that. It has doesn't really have a lot to do with male or female. Either spouse can be parent or child. But whoever is usually a more natural nurturer can be very easy to move into a parent-like position in the marriage. And this may manifest as that particular spouse being more of a disciplinarian to their spouse, or constantly, not necessarily constantly, but taking a position of authority with your spouse, which is inappropriate, and also not respecting boundaries. So that's another characteristic of somebody who's in that parent role, is they don't necessarily respect the other person's boundaries. They may feel they have the right, or the that it's okay to disrespect that person's personal boundaries. I'm trying to think of an example of disrespecting boundaries.
I mean, when like for us, we have a Jack and Jill sink in our bathroom, and if she just takes up the whole sink and not respect my side of the bathroom, that's kind of an example of what this is.
Yeah.
And
if it's not agreed upon,
right?
Or if it's pushed upon that person without giving them the opportunity to have a difference of opinion. It's when you just impose your will on that person despite how they feel about it. You just feel like, oh well, your opinion don't matter, or I'm gonna do this anyway. So that's sort of taking more of a parent approach to dealing with your spouse, rather than dealing with your spouse as an equal. And it's very natural for some people to move into that position. Very often, I don't want to be gender specific, but just very often for mothers, especially when you're raising children, it can be easy for you to start to treat your husband and manage issues with him the same way you're managing issues with the children. And that's inappropriate. You're two individual responsible adults, and you're responsible to each other, not for each other. You are not responsible for your spouse doing what they need to do as an adult. You're only responsible for doing what you're supposed to do as an adult, and you may be responsible for supervising your children to make sure they do what they need to do as individuals, as children.
Right.
But you are not responsible for making sure that your spouse does whatever they have agreed to do. You're not responsible for making sure that your spouse does what you expect for them to do. That's not your job.
Right. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about how to remedy these solutions of this. And the child role, in the parent-child dynamic is normally a person that is a little bit more passive than the other one. You know, like we said, it's not gender specific. You know, men and women can be passive in a relationship. So if you're the more passive person, you may find yourself in that child role. Also, a person may actually be enjoying being taken care of that way. You know, you don't have to worry about anything. The other person got it. They're doing what they're doing. Everything seems to be fine, and you just take that back seat and just let them have the wheels and let them have the wheel to the car, which is the house, and let them go with it. And that's how you get into that role. Also, a person in this position takes on interest and hobbies outside the house. That means they do certain things to stay outside the house to let themselves know that they have something that they want to do other than take care of what they're supposed to be taking care of in the house. If the other person's going to do it anyway, why not let them do it? All right.
Well, the issue comes in is that when you could both have interests outside the house. That's not a problem. But the problem is when your interests outside the house, which could even be your job, is so time consuming that when you get back home, the person who is not, out of the house at that level might take on the assumed obligation to manage this person who's not at home as often, or kind of want the person who's working outside the home to kind of jump on board with whatever systems they have in place for the one who's home more often.
Right.
As opposed to, because the alternative to that would be for the two of you to decide how you're going to run the household. So it can't be, well, I'm home the most, you only home a couple of waking hours a day, everything's going to be the way I got it set up, just get in line and do what I say do. That is very much a parent role, and then the person coming into the home would be taking on a child role if they just allow that to happen. And they just fall back and say, oh, well, I'm just going to go along with the way he wants it or the way she wants it. I'm not going to buck any.
Right.
Very often that's the logic people use. But once again, having peace is not all about being quiet.
Right.
There's a difference in being quiet and being peaceful.
Also, this person have a issue setting boundaries, and the other person doesn't. So if you have an issue setting boundaries, just the other person gonna set boundaries for you. Therefore, locking you into a childlike role
or disrespect the boundaries that you do set.
So here's the thing: why this becomes a problem. Why this particular relationship dynamic becomes a problem? Because the thing you're dealing with is two adults. And what may tend to happen, and the issue where it comes in with the problem, that both may actually start to feel resentful.
Yeah, both the one in the parent role and also the spouse in the child's role. It may feel natural at first to just kind of let things flow, let that person kind of have it. It's okay to overstep my boundaries, but whatever, we got to exist peacefully. And that may feel natural. It might feel like the right thing to do to manage your home, but it really is a ticking time bomb.
Right. Boom. That's what happens. And it does happen. And it will.
It happens a lot. It's very easy to do. So when a spouse starts to feel like a child or like the other person is parenting them, that is a reason that person can feel resentful. And then that's where you get into what starts to deteriorate or ruin the marriage, as well as the one who's doing the parenting may actually become resentful towards the other spouse for not stepping up and being responsible as an individual adult, bringing that level of responsibility as a second adult.
Right, and that's where resent comes in. They feeling overwhelmed. They feeling like they don't have any help. Feel like they taking care of everything, and that's the problem. You know, like we've stated in several of these shows we've done, this is a partnership. You are in a partnership with another adult. You should never really feel overwhelmed. And if you do, you should be able to go to that other adult and say, you know, I got a lot on my plate. Could you help me? I'm doing a little bit. I got a lot on my plate at work. I need you to do this for me. That's respect. That's me asking you to help me out.
And partnership.
But when you just overstep, and you just not necessarily overstep, but when you don't do your part, that causes the other person to feel overwhelmed. And that's where the resentment comes in at. It's
an imbalance. I think that's one way to sort of summarize it, is when there is that imbalance in leadership in the household, when there's an imbalance in responsibility, shared responsibility, and also when one spouse might feel like they don't truly have a partner.
Right.
You know, I've heard some women refer to their husbands as another child. He's just one of the boys. He's just, you know, another child to add on. And that is an indicator that perhaps there's an imbalance there that is something for you to look at, because you don't get married to have a child. That in addition to the children you have, you get married to have a partner. You don't marry a child. You marry a full-grown adult. Marriage is for mature people. If you're still immature, then marriage is probably not something you should be even considering. You need to be a mature, responsible adult when you enter into marriage.
All right. So, you know, there are areas that we could talk about that are up for consideration when we're talking about the parent-child dynamic. Yeah, like my wife said, where it can actually manifest and start. And one thing is, you know, with money.
Yeah.
And money is one of those things where, you know, we've talked about money before, and, you know, we've expressed that we really don't like dealing with money like that, but we have to, because we have to run the household with what we bring into the house. But we're not dominant on each other when it comes to money. Sometimes there becomes a dominant role when you're talking about money, where one person is going to tell the other person what we're going to do with the household funds. And then some people are allotted, just allotted, not a stipend, but like a when you give a child allowance. That's what I'm looking for. That's the word. Some people give their significant other an allowance on a weekly basis. Now, let me just step back on this. If that's how you run your household, then so be it. But giving an adult allowance goes to the adage that that's a child you're dealing with. You know, now if you're getting together and you're separating the money, where you have a certain amount of money, I have a certain amount of money, we're just dividing the money equally. But if you're just allotting a little bit of money or allowance to another adult, that's a childlike idea. So I just want you to be a little aware there.
I think the main thing to keep in mind, because people do manage their households a lot of different ways, and we certainly are not here to tell you what's right or wrong and how you manage your household. Our goal is to have you examine like your motives for making decisions for how you're managing your household. Are you giving an allowance to your spouse because they don't manage money well and you don't trust them with the money, so you feel you just have to take the lead and be the parent in that situation? Or could it be that, you know, well, you're better with money, and until I learn how to manage the money better, then we have an agreement that maybe you take the lead on how to manage the money, but that don't count me out as an adult. Right. I'm still, or as part of finances, I'm still alongside with you partnering, being aware of what's going on. So that's one way to examine. That's the whole point, is we want you to examine what are your motives behind making the decisions for how the money is made. For how the money is managed. That didn't come out right. And it's not just finances. You can also look at even like how you make decisions in general. When especially big decisions are made. You know, I know in some families, you know, one spouse may just decide, my job has, you know, this other position available. I'm going to apply for it. And if I get it, we're moving. That's, you know, what, that's not a unilateral decision that should be made. A decision for that big, you have to have a system for making those big decisions, so that both adults are able to give input and that you all make that decision together, so that you both are in agreement in making that decision, especially something as big as moving or making big purchases. I know families where, you know, one person just go buy a car and you come home, it's a new car in the driveway. You know, and that, like I said, it's all about the motive. Was that done because you all have set up your finances to where each individual person has autonomy for how they manage things like that? Or is it that one person just made a decision by themselves without consulting the other spouse that they were going to buy another car? So it's you have to look at what the motives are behind it. If there's that control factor and that lack of boundaries and lack of consideration for your partner as an equal versus that imbalance of having that parent-child relationship.
So you're probably, based on what my wife just said, you probably done fell into that parent-child dynamic with your significant, with your other. We don't know that. But those three things right there, imbalance. You don't have a say-so in the house, and you don't have boundaries. And if you're on the other end of all three of those, you're probably in an imbalanced relationship with a parent-child dynamic. Yeah,
you have to examine yourself. Yeah. Another way that shows up, and we talked about this, is in the laundry. That I really hadn't thought about it, but he always has pretty much done his own laundry. I have no problem with that. And even as I think back, you know, even through childhood, I was telling her, I was like, you know, my dad is always, he don't necessarily, he will wash his own clothes if something not right. He not just gonna sit back and, you know, try to push my mama to do it. He's a grown person, so he go ahead and take care of whatever he needs, without putting any demands on her. And that's, I never thought about it until we had this conversation about this. And there are some families where, you know, one spouse can't get dressed without the other. You know, they need somebody to pick out the clothes for them. They need somebody to shop and buy the clothes for them. That, you know, that gets into sort of a childlike exchange. You know, it's not, so it's about the motive. Let me keep that in mind. Because some people just may prefer that their spouse has better style or whatever. They may like for their spouse to help them with that task. But if you can't have new clothes if your spouse don't buy it for you, and you need new clothes and you just sitting back waiting on somebody to buy your clothes for you like the children do.
Are you asking, would you go buy me something? Come on.
Or I need, you know, new pants. Socks. You really got to go to another adult for that? Or you can't handle that on your own as an adult? I mean, you really have to look at what the motive is. You know, is it that you feel inadequate to do that? Or what is your reason that you need another adult to take care of your clothing needs for you? You really have to look at that. Be an independent adult. You're going to be happier in your marriage relationship when you know that you count on each other because you choose to, not because you have to. It's a totally different feeling to feel dependent on somebody versus to be interdependent
on each other.
That we depend on each other. But if I have to, situation changed in life to where I have to take care of myself, I can take care of myself. That's what you want as an individual person. Each spouse should be able to know that if I had to be on my own and take care of myself for whatever circumstances, I'm grown enough to be able to take care of everything that I need.
And when we really feel, some connection to this topic, because we are very aware of, I'm not her daddy and she's not my mama. And, when something is happening that may even look like I'm trying to be a daddy to her, she'd be like, hold on now. You're not my daddy.
Very quick.
That's what she say. And she, hold on now. You're not my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, Linda Brinson died, 23 years ago. I don't need another mama right now. I can handle this on my own. So even when we feel that start to happen, we are quickly to correct each other.
To me, it's setting boundaries.
And we don't get into our feelings. And see, that's could be an issue too. Don't ever get into your feelings when you're correcting the other person when they done cross your boundaries. Right. Yeah. You can't get into your feelings. So this is one of those things where you got to be aware. If you don't like it, this is the time to start correcting it. If you're the person that's being the parent-like in the parent-like role, this is the time to correct it. And see, we even talked about what can be done to correct this this dynamic in your life. What can actually be done? So when we're talking about what can be done, what can a parent-like person do to correct this dynamic in their relationship or this type of relationship? Well, one thing the parent can do is
the spouse.
The spouse, not the parent. I'm sorry. The spouse-like parent can do is, let the other person, if you know that this is going on, just let the person, maybe you need to, if you're talking about clothes, well, maybe you need to go shopping for that for yourself. Give them the option to help them if they don't know they're in that role to do things for themselves.
And to ask what you can do to help, not to just take over.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give grown people room to work things out for themselves. If the way they handle any given situation doesn't please you, that's not really the goal. Individual adults have different opinions, different tastes, and your job is not to control your spouse. You don't have to approve of every little thing the way your spouse may cook a dish, or don't be so controlling that you have to be the decider of what's right and what's wrong. That's what comes through in that parent-like role when a spouse is taking on that role. Is you don't have to be in control of every little thing. Allow grown-ups to be grown.
Right.
Grown-ups don't need to be told how to do things as much as we tend to think that grown-ups might need to be told to do things. Give people room to decide how they want to do things. Let people have room to fail.
All right. With that said, Ms. Gail has a question. Ms.
Okay.
Gail, she asks, what are your thoughts on a big age difference between two people wanting to be married? Example, 5 to 10 years. We have actually done some work with this. It basically, for me, and my thoughts on this, it basically comes down to respect.
Right.
With the two individuals. Mm-hmm. If they're old enough to get married to you, they're old enough to be respected by you as the equal and significant other.
Even if there's a 20-year difference,
mm-hmm.
then it's very important for each person involved to be very aware not to let this dynamic become a factor in your marriage. Being my elder as in age still don't make you my daddy. It doesn't. And so there's a level of respect. And so that older person may have to resist the urge to try to tell that younger person what to do. Give people time to grow. Understand that you used to be that age that this person is now as well. And you have to give people time to grow. And if you don't have that level of tolerance and you got to try to make that person into who you want them to be, then perhaps you're not going to be a good person for that person to be married to. If you can allow them to grow as an individual, that's just a level of respect that married people have to have for each other.
Right.
And you do have to give room for people to fail and for room for people to succeed. It's not your job to keep your spouse from having a hard time working through something. You're there to support your spouse as an individual. You're not there to life. You know, you're there as a support.
Yep, and your experiences, of course, if you're 5 to 10 years older, you have a certain level of experience over that person. But in this case, you made a choice. You and the other person agreed to be married.
Yeah.
So you got to get the other person room to mature and to be themselves, the true essence of themselves, or you're not going to get.
Okay. I think with that, we had a little pause. Sometimes when the weather is like it is today, that can happen, but I think we're back up. It looks like you guys stuck around, so we appreciate that.
So, like I was saying, you just got to make room for that person to mature into the person that they're ultimately going to be, which would be beneficial to the marriage relationship.
And I tell you, I think one thing that it's important to keep in mind, and I think also with your children, it's important to keep this in mind too, is that God ultimately knows what's in a person, and he knows what he intends for life experiences to help bring out of that person. And we don't know. As well as I might think I know my spouse, I don't know him like God knows him. I don't know what God has planned for him inside and out. I'm here to be an assistance. I'm not here to take over planning for his life. That's God's job. And so he has a responsibility to build his relationship with God, just like I have a responsibility to build my relationship with God. And God ultimately, gives me the Holy Spirit as a guide in my life. So my spouse is there as a supporter. I am here, particularly if we're talking about male-female roles, as an assistant, to assist, to help. But I'm not here to make sure that he don't ever make any mistakes. And I'm not here to make sure that he follows a path that I think he should follow in his life and try to control him from behind. That's, I think that's a mentality a lot of women take on. And also as, whoever is, as a male, you're there as the head of the family out of the order that God has put into place. So you're there to hear from God on how to lead the family. You're not there to dictate and to tell your spouse, every little detail about her life. You got 2 grown adults. Let grown people be grown, and you'll enjoy each other so much more when you are both happy individually and you're even happier together.
And that's all that was well said by my wife. And, can I share this a little bit with them?
I don't know what you asking to share.
Yeah, I'm just asking you, can I share?
Share what?
About what you were telling me, that you fell into that role of trying to be a parent, or trying to parent me. You thought you were parenting me, and I had no idea.
Well, you told me that we didn't have a parent-child relationship
We did not.
At any point.
But that does not dismiss the fact that she thought it. And she probably lived it, and I was probably doing stuff to make it seem like, okay, this is the kind of relationship we have. And, when she told me that, it kind of just blew me away. Like, hold on. No, we ain't never had no relationship like that. But that was not her. That was not her.
That wasn't my experience.
That wasn't her truth.
My experience was, and this is, very long time ago. Actually, I can probably pinpoint it because I remember when I had a revelation that I thought I could identify with. We were, it was when Charity was 2. I can tell you. So that means it's been 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. Very long time. And that's when I recognized, when we were in a meeting, and the person that was speaking was, it was a church type meeting, but the person that was speaking was also a licensed marriage counselor. And he was talking about, marriage and, healing and recognizing issues that's going on. And one of the things he talked about was that parent-child relationship. And I could identify with it because I felt very much like I had to supervise things for it to happen, that a lot of things were not happening unless I had to be the catalyst for those things to happen. And so when I had that epiphany, I was like, I'm going to step right on back, because I don't desire to be a parent to my husband. I need a spouse that's going to step up. And so what I had to do was he couldn't step up because I was stepping, well, he could have stepped up, but once I stepped back, it allowed him the opportunity to see where he needed to step forward. And so it wasn't a conversation that I had with him at the time. It was just something that I recognized. And so I made the adjustments on my end. And the adjustments on my end led to him making adjustments. And like I say, here we are 13 years later, and we've never even had a conversation about it. But the change happened just by me making that adjustment. And I didn't keep telling him about taking the trash out, because I feel like, I felt like I was married to a rebellious teenager. That's what I told you yesterday. Because it was so much resentment for things that we both knew needed to be done. And I wanted it done when it's supposed to be done, which is more of a parent perspective. And he felt like, and very much would say, I'll get around to it.
I'll do it when I feel like it.
That too.
And I can't operate in my feelings. And I knew it should have been done, but I did not like her telling me to do it.
Rebellious teenager.
But I was a grown man with a woman trying to tell me what to do. And them two things did not work well with me. So
was your response appropriate?
No, it was not.
And neither was mine.
Exactly.
And so it's not even at this point, it's not about pointing the finger. It's about recognizing that when it is present in your relationship.
And it was resentment on both of our parts.
And really, absolutely.
Yeah, it was resentment.
Because I'm like, listen, I didn't get married to have to tell a grown man what to do every day. That ain't the life I'm trying to live.
And that's where it all stemmed from.
Where all of what stemmed from?
What we're talking about here. Where you didn't get married to tell a grown man what to do, and I didn't get married for a woman to tell me what to do.
We're going to fight about this chair in a minute.
We ain't going to fight about nothing.
Okay.
I'm not going to jail. We ain't fighting about nothing, y'all.
Go on.
Okay. So that's where we were with this situation. And this is why we particularly like this lesson, because we can relate to it without even talking about it. We're like, whoa, that's what some of that was back then. But we are mature enough now to be like, okay, this is not an issue. We can actually tell each other, what's going on or how we need to express ourselves.
Right. And it's improving in the way you communicate as well. That's a big piece of, and I guess we probably need to go ahead and talk about solutions, but that's one of the solutions is improving your marriage skills, which is what we do here on Marriage Mondays, is help give you information on how to improve your marriage skills. So when you gain those skills for how to communicate, that's certainly a catalyst to help bring about healing and allowing your spouse to be accountable, and for you to be respectful in how you even, breach the topics that you all need to discuss. So as opposed to just telling your spouse what they need to do, if there's an existing problem, the trash piling up and you got maggots by the back door, that's a problem, because, you can only ignore it for so long. And for some people, that's not a sign that they see they need to go on and do what they need to do, the fact that it's building up. And so you have to be able to communicate in a way that's going to bring about a positive change without you parenting that child, or without your spouse or the other spouse being so passive that they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. So there has to be a place of coming to a medium. But like I said, we never even really talked about it in these terms, even though I was very aware of it. But once I became aware, because it wouldn't have gone over well, because then he'd have been like, oh, you think you my parent and I ain't your child. It just would have made it so much worse. So I'm thankful that I didn't say anything to him about it. I just identified with it and made some adjustments on my end. And that left him to where he had to be accountable for those things, that he wasn't addressing. And so I think it helps tremendously, the fact that, prayer, you have to factor that in as well. You pray about those things, those issues that you see in your marriage. If you recognize this dynamic going on in your relationship, that's the first thing you do, is pray about how to handle it. And you'd be amazed at how God does the work in the background, doing that work for you. So I did my part and God did the rest with him without us even having to because at that point we weren't able to communicate well at all.
And what happens is what God would do in a situation like that is put somebody in front of you that he or she can hear.
Right.
So you can hear their voice about, what was going on. So we that's what we did with it. And I heard, in that, not in that place that where she's talking about, but I heard later on in some other marriage events that we were at that the husband is responsible for the whole house. And what that meant to me is I got to be responsible for everything that goes on in here. I'm responsible, but that don't mean I do it all.
Right.
And it's all my way. So I was able to hear somebody say that, and that's how I got on track with doing what I'm supposed to do in my particular house.
I'm going to translate what my mama said. She said, no fight, you better not put your hands on me.
That ain't what she said. Why are you doing that? That's what mommy said.
And what she meant in her heart. You better not touch my child. Which you never have, so, I don't want to put you out there like that.
So, with that said, we're coming to the end of the broadcast.
We thank y'all for the comments.
Yes, thank you.
Let me see. We had a lot of comments today. I'm going to just try to look real quick. Well, with your eyes better than mine. I'll let you decide if there's anything we need to address. That was just people saying hi. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate y'all for coming on. I will say, is it next week? Next week's a regular week or no?
Next week is a regular week.
Regular week, okay. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about the trip to, we are taking a trip to California. And so I'm not sure if we're going to pre-record it or if we might try to do it from California.
We might try to do it from California.
That's what he's thinking. So we might. We'll see how it goes. Y'all be prayerful about it. We'll be prayerful about it too. We may have to consult Sister Myra, our technology, minister of technology,
Well,
so
yes.
She's our help with that. So thank y'all so much for joining. Were there comments you wanted to mention?
Ms. Rhonda said most wives are guilty of this, telling their husbands what to do.
A lot are. But it goes both ways.
People go back. Yep, it does. People have been saying they like how funny we are. Good information.
Can I just say, we don't be trying to be funny, I ain't gonna lie. That's just the life we live. And to be real honest, our children sometimes just step back and laugh at us. And that's just the way we move through life. So we're glad we can bring y'all some humor, but it just is the way we live.
Yeah.
So
all right.
So we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We hope to see y'all next week.
It says, Ms. Mama E says, yes, more prayer is needed for your spouse always.
Always keep your spouse in prayer. Always keep your marriage in prayer. And we do pray for you all in your marriages as well. Yep. And I pray that y'all do the same for us. So, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. And we try to keep it to 30 minutes, family. Because we know Monday nights is long and we're about 15 minutes over, but we finna let y'all go. We love y'all too. From the lady and the coach. Good night.